Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry. We are on the Tatarigoroshi chapter, episode 10, it looks like. Let's jump in. I'm gonna think we're probably winding up with this series. So I'm thinking that for Tatarigoroshi, we probably only have one or two episodes left. In our last episode, Keiichi was trying to determine a plan for killing Satoko's uncle. He got like pretty detailed with it. So I guess in this episode, we're gonna find out if he really tries to go through with it. Sunday. Fireworks I heard before noon were probably to announce the opening of the festival. And the weather certainly wasn't festival weather. It was cloudy. The television forecast was calling for possible downpours starting this evening and lasting until around midnight. But as long as it wasn't raining at the moment, the festival would go on. The festival had to open, or it wouldn't begin. Ominous. The Furude Shrine grounds were probably decorated beautifully for the big performance that only happened once a year. Many paper lanterns were hung up, all in the auspicious colors of red and white. The sound of electric motors at the stalls, voices of kids running around, their happy families watching them, smiling. Today was the festival of Watanagashi. Was everyone already partaking in the festivities? What about Sadako? Had she forgotten her days of suffering just for a few moments, while smiling that brilliant smile she hadn't in so long? This would probably be the longest day of my life. It would be a day I would remember vividly for as long as I lived. I told my parents I'd go to the festival this evening and lounged about during the early afternoon. We may have lived under the same roof, but they couldn't help being surprised by the deviation from how I usually spent my time. Glancing at my parents out of the corner of my eye, I went to the front door. I tied my shoes just a little tighter than normal, as if to express the firmness of my resolve in these knots. When I decided to murder Sadako's uncle, I was in such a state of excitement I almost went crazy. And when I was planning out the act of a murder, which went directly against all the morals fostered in me thus far, I was in such a state of calm that I almost thought I had lost my emotions. And then yesterday, when I learned Satoshi had made exactly the same phone call as me, I didn't know how to describe the muddled feelings I had then. So also in our last episode, we talked to Mion, and Mion revealed that Satoshi had made the same phone call the previous year to Mion, asking her to take Sadako to the festival. I've suspected for a while that Satoshi had a hand in his aunt's death. She was also beaten to death. They pinned it on like a drug addict that we found out in the last episode who like died in while he was being held in his cell. So I don't think they ever got to the bottom of it, of that case. So Satoko's aunt died, Satoshi disappeared, and they were never able to tie the two cases together. And now we're doing like the same thing that Satoshi was doing. We're planning on killing the uncle. Weird. And now, entering today, right now I lacked all the emotions I'd possessed until now. To make a simple analogy, it was the kind of feeling you might get right after you wake up, when you're still half asleep and you don't feel anything very clearly. I had no anger towards that man for the violence he'd committed against Satoko, nor did I feel sadness towards or sympathize with her. I felt no discontent towards my friends, who just waited and watched, never reaching out to her with any help, and no nervousness or fear towards the day that had finally come. Yes, right now you could say I was in the best possible condition for carrying out a murder. He sounds like a sociopath. He's saying he doesn't have like any feelings towards anyone. He's just kind of like driven to do one thing. When it came down to it, I would probably need to let my violent emotions take control. But right up until that moment, I'd be like an insect. I would slowly, surely, and silently move towards my one objective. And then when I had my prey, I'd attack like a bullet. There was no emotion in that. Just a creeping mindset insects possessed. That sort of sneaking feeling was just the best. I would kill Satoko's uncle like he was a worm. I had to laugh a little at thinking that way. Thinking like an insect. Tug. Tightened my laces one more time and walked out the door. I brought the shovel out the front storeroom. I would need it to dig the man's grave. The shovel was a convenient one made for camping. If I twisted it like so and split it into three, I could easily hide it in my bag. Twisted the shovel and dismantled it. Even though I'd done it countless times before, I had trouble for some reason. Like I was suddenly clumsy now. I knew why. It wasn't because I was nervous. My weak-willed self deep within me was hesitant. I knew that the act of dismantling the shovel was the first step I'd take toward becoming a murderer. Last twist was conspicuously difficult, but it finally submitted before the strength of my determination. The area around Sadako's house was outside my circle of activity, but even just riding my bike in the middle of the day like this might seem suspicious to an observant person. Hey you kid, what are you doing riding your bike on a Sunday? You're suspicious as hell. Definitely want to avoid meeting and talking to someone I knew. With that in mind, I chose the route to my destination carefully. I didn't mind going the long way around. With how long this day would be, I could never be too careful after all. Still, I was fortunate enough not to run across anybody on my way to the planned site of the crime. I wasn't superstitious at this point, but it was a good omen. The place I would dig the hole was in this grove, a little further into the woods. I was worried I might not make it to the same place as before, since there were no signs to guide me, but I arrived there, smoothly and as expected. I took another look around. Not even a hint of human presence. The air was a little bit damp, but it was comfortable in the cool shade of the trees. I took the disassembled shovel out of my bag, and began skillfully putting it together. Then, I stuck the shovel into the soft-looking patch of ground and pushed on it with my foot. The shovel would split into the earth if I put some strength into that foot. The act of doing so seemed awfully like the point of no return, and it made me hesitate. I was just digging a hole with a shovel, but it made me gulp hard. Calm down, Keiichi Maibara. Let's do a countdown. Get it done on the count of 3, okay? Alright, 1, 2... Couldn't do it on the countdown, despite it being sticking the shovel into the ground, and I had to count it down 5 or 6 times. Damn it. I'm just digging a hole. This is pathetic. Well, really, you're digging a grave. I mean, like, when it comes down to it, that's why you're having a problem with this. As I thought that, I put strength into my heel like I was stepping on something unpleasant, and split came the sharp noise. It was only soft at the beginning. Roots and stones quickly got in my way, informing me just how hard it was to dig a hole big enough for a person. No decent person would ever come here anyway. It would be enough to cover him up with some dirt. Every time a naive thought like that crept into my mind, I bit down on it with my teeth and dug even harder. I've dug enough now. I could hide him like this. Every time I thought that, I would go down into the hole, grow disappointed at how shallow it was, and return to digging. A thin layer of sweat on my brow eventually formed into drops and fell to the ground. My back was in even worse shape. My damp shirt adhered to my skin, and it felt so disgusting. The things I couldn't stand the most were the mosquitoes. Maybe they were attracted by the scent of my sweat. The white and black striped mosquitoes would cling to me whenever I let my guard down. It was hot. It was disgusting. I was sticky. I was itchy. Sounds like my Saturday night. I was hot. I was sticky. I was disgusting. This uncomfortable feeling surged through me in waves. I hadn't yelled at anyone. It was me talking to myself. Me telling myself something. Why was I feeling this way and digging a hole all the way out here? What benefit would digging this hole give me? What harm would there be in not digging this hole at all? Wait, in the first place, who ordered me to dig? I thought it over, maybe ever since grade school, or even before that. My whole life had only been me doing what other people told me to. I didn't mean it was somehow constrained, living a life just based on the commands of others. I didn't mean I was too lazy to try and find my own road in life. Metaphorically speaking, yes, it was like a road. Never been particularly physically fit. Same. I didn't hit puberty very early, and if all my classmates and I got in a line, I'd usually be on the shorter end. My scores in jump rope competitions and marathons were the very picture of average. Same. And it wasn't like the captains of the dodgeball teams would have a passionate rock, paper, scissors contest to see which would get me. He's talking about my life. I was a very average student. Like, I got good grades, but I was like the invisible kid. Very average, so I get it. I get that feeling. During those kindergarten and grade school years, it felt like someone was only worth how fast they grew and how fit they were. Looking back on it now, it was really uncomfortable for me. The thing that turned that all around was just a few words from my mother.
Keiichi, あなた塾に入る気はない？学校の勉強がわかるようになって楽しくなるわよ。
The very first test I took at cram school was kind of like a game. It was a lot of fun. Wasn't like the test with the same exact problem dozens of times in a row. Every question had a picture to it, almost like one of those puzzle books that came with manga magazines. My studies at school had been like this, it would have been way more fun. Several days later, I went to the cram school again with my mother and the enrollment paperwork. Mom and the person at the cram school had a really long, heated discussion, so I accidentally dozed off and missed most of what they said, but I clearly remember one point. Mama made a loud groan, surprised at something.
61って平均点が61点ですか？
いえ、違いますよ、お母さん。全国展開する当塾での平均偏差値が61です。簡易式の知能検査でも非凡な数字が出ています。まず申し上げて、前原圭一君は大変に頭がいい。圭一が？
でも学校では大した成績じゃあり
So
ませんし。
our mom is surprised that we're not like an idiot? Is that what she's saying? She's like, I thought my son was freaking stupid as hell.
通信簿も234が適当に並ぶ平均的なもので、何かの間違いではありませんか？
いくつかの知能テストとも重ねましたが、その結果興味深いことが分かりました。前原君は意味を持たない問題に非常に弱いのです。無味乾燥で自身の生活に結びつかない内容の問題に興味が持てないのです。
Yeah, everybody has their own way of learning.
2+3 は分からなくても、リンゴが2個あって3個増やしたら何個にという形なら理解できるという。
その通りです。例えば正六面体の展開図を書けと言われて混乱する圭一君も、サイコロを切り開いたらどんな形になるというふうに聞けば見事に答えられるのです。
Got it, okay. The person from the cram school showed her a page from one of the exams I took. It was a paper with questions about construction. Construction questions were unusual, so they were really cool, weren't they?
正二十面体の展開図を書けという問題です。この問題を二十面体のサイコロを作るにはどんな風に厚紙を切ればいいと聞き直したら、圭一君はさも簡単そうにこれを書いてみせました。これは平凡なことではありません。
Okay, so we're like gifted in a sense. We're just like bored with school.
ケイチ、あなたどこかの本の雑誌の付録か何かで二十面体のサイコロを作ったことがあったの？
Dice only went from 1 to 6. Never even considered before this test that there were dice with more than 6 sides. So it's fun to imagine what kind of shape a die that went up to 20 would have. If I had a die like that, I could win at dice games against anyone. So I immediately wanted to make it. Finally, I entered cram school. There were only 4 students in the class they put me in, which was called Select. It was the highest class, and some of my classmates were in lower classes. And I remembered how much better they had done at things like dodgeball and the 50-meter sprint. I felt happiness well up within me for the first time. Even if I wasn't as good as them physically, I triumphed over them in other ways. It was fun at first. The more I did, the more I was praised. My teachers at school suddenly started pampering me, and it felt good. My parents were satisfied too. And I enjoyed seeing them satisfied. The more I listened to my parents' commands, the more fun things got. And now here we are planning a murder. It did happen, didn't it? I grinned dryly in self-deprecation. Because, well, my studious lifestyle didn't end up lasting very long. It was only at the beginning I enjoyed learning more and more. I gradually got along less with my friends. My classes were behind what I was learning in cram school, and I eventually stopped respecting the teachers, given that they could put me to sleep with their lectures. And, well, I was a disagreeable sort who bragged a lot about how much I knew. The ways of the world wouldn't let me remain in this state of ecstasy forever. I would do as I was told, and I'd go above and beyond their expectations, and then they praised me. I was happy for that, and the cycle repeated itself like wheels on a bike. Not moving forward like that was how life worked, like a bicycle. When I moved to Hinamizawa, I realized just how inadequate it was. Some things happened, and we started saying how moving and getting a change in atmosphere would be nice. And my father, he had a place that he liked, that he'd gone to a few times to draw the nature. He started saying that he wanted to bring his atelier there, I've seen that word. I don't know how to say it. With me in blank amazement, they decided to move to Hinamizawa. And after that, I met them, didn't I? The first day after transferring here. Went to the classroom with the teacher. Thought it would seem pitiful for her to bring me in there, so I placed my hand on the door before she could, slammed it open, and set foot into the room. Flatter. The thrilling, powerful way I opened that door was none other than my own determination to try doing my life over again. And then, within seconds, that determination took a hard counter to the face. A blackboard eraser fell on me. Satoko. You sly devil. Plus there was a huge rock inside. It was a supremely painful trap someone had set up. Come on, Satoko was already beating me right from the first day I transferred? That frightened me. I was bewildered. The class was surprised too. I wasn't just surprised that the students in the class were all in different grades and were different genders. It was because the room felt completely different from the schools I knew. And as I spent more time with them, my surprise continued to grow. This fresh sense of surprise had never left my life even to this day. Every day was a fresh new surprise. Never had a single boring day since coming here. The days were lively, spent with the other club members, played old maid with cards and scratches on the back to cheat. We let all our passions go wild during our games. We went all out as regular participants in tournaments at the toy store in town and many, many more things. Recently during those times, there was the bento competition. It was then. That's when I saw an unexpected side to Sadako. Thinking back on it, I only ate dinner with her 2 nights. Such a sweet, gentle time spent, and it warmed my heart remembering it even now. I realized that Sadako was pretending to be stubborn and firm, and how brave she was, part of her heart always waiting for her Nini to come home. And I vowed to become her Nini. Satoko may have been nagging and overly critical, but she knew how to take care of someone. But though it might have seemed like she was taking the lead, it was actually her way of depending upon another person. Even if Satoshi and Satoko's lives as siblings were confined by their uncle and his wife, they were still warm, sunny days. Is this just like a flashback episode as he's digging the hole? When do those sunny days all go wrong? What mistakes were made? Lamenting tragedies of the past would do no good, and I told myself that so many times, but I did anyway. Keiichi, isn't that why you chose your own path? To take back that life? Nobody ordered you to do this. You decided it on your own. You don't desire anyone's praise for this. You thought it all through yourself. You'll carve it out yourself. And you'll do it now. It wasn't a path I could see very far down. Not like the road parents or society could offer. It was a narrow path, dark and utterly distressing. One for which the next step would always be shrouded in darkness. But that disheartening path would keep on going forever. It was an unlimited path, and there was nowhere I couldn't travel. The kind of path only available to those able to imagine what they wanted to go. Don't be ashamed at breaking from the brightly lit paved road. In fact, feel proud that you found your very own path to walk. And I hadn't discarded the paved road either. Once I achieved my goal, I would go back to that bright road, and then I'd spend those average sunny days at my leisure. Come on, dig the hole, Keiichi, let's go. We got a man to kill, we got a body to bury. Crush. I next realized that the hole had grown so deep I couldn't believe it. Did I dig all this myself? I hope you can get out. Put my shovel into the bottom of the hole. I drag the body here, throw it into the hole, and cover it up with dirt. Even if it took me time to camouflage it by putting plants on top, it'll go much more easily than digging this hole had. Glanced at my watch. It was almost evening, and I hadn't realized it. I may not have felt the time passing, but digging a hole this deep must have taken quite a lot of time. I took a seat on a slanted rock nearby and wiped the sweat from my brow. Now, once it got a little darker, I'd go get the middle bat I hid in the schoolyard. Then I'd make the call to lure him out. And then, I'd do it. The number of things I needed to do to reach that moment were dwindling. I felt that moment closing in on me, much more keenly than I did the passage of time. I didn't have any hesitation, but I still felt that a contradiction. At every step in this process, I had a few chances to hesitate, to turn back, to let myself lose my nerve. Having to endure those million temptations and wait for when the time is right, it was an indescribably slow and painful torture. I had thought myself acting all weak because of that, but I stopped midway through. This was okay. It was fine. I could detest the abnormal act of homicide as much as I wanted it, and it didn't matter. I wasn't going to be a cutthroat killer after today. I would pass through this strange day and go back to the world I was in before. I fell to the level of psychopath who thought nothing of killing. I wouldn't be able to go back to my old life. So this was fine with me. I didn't have to feel ashamed at hesitating to kill, because I was human. It was so funny to me that I'd be the bearer of Oyashiro-sama's curse at the same time I was aware I was a human. I exhaled lightly and stood. I concealed my presence and sharpened my senses in all directions, searched for everyone around but me. Okay, let's go. One step at a time. I would walk my own path. A path no one had forced me to walk.
行くぞ。前原圭一。
The cicadas made an annoying fuss. Their chorus covered up the suspicious noise of me breaking twigs underfoot. And their chorus filled the path far ahead of me, letting me know I would be alone for some time. The cicadas blessed the path I walked, encouraging me with every last ounce of strength they had. The sky was far above. In not even an hour, the veil of night would draw near and the sky would be tinted with dusk. By that time, the Higurashi would let me hear their chorus in place of the cicadas. When that happened, would everything be over with? Would everything have ended? I said something along those lines when I left Sadako's fate up to a public agency. But this time was different. I would do it. I would carry it out. I would end it. It would all be over very soon. Everything would end. That's very ominous. Yes, when the Higurashi cried. What a very strange thing to say. Why was the text chopped up like that? It's very unusual. Alright. Grave dug. So I guess we're going to go through with it. Unless we wussed out at the last second, but he seems pretty determined. There was nobody at school. Couldn't hear the playful voices of children. It was the first time I'd seen the school with such a lack of human presence. Still, I quieted my breath and looked around, not wanting to be unprepared. It had gotten darker outside, but it was almost like my eyes could see more clearly now. I made absolutely sure of my safety, then walked to the heavy construction machine I'd hidden the baseball bat behind. I had a tinge of worry, a premonition, that someone had found the bat and hidden it somewhere else as a prank. If that happened, would I take that as an opportunity to desist? If it really wasn't there, then the sensation of chilled metal. It was still here where I left it. It hadn't run away. I guess we're gonna go through with it. Satoshi hadn't run away. He waited here patiently. For me.
待たせたな、サトシ。いよいよだが、覚悟はいいか?
Now we're talking to the bat. We've named it Satoshi. It's not a good sign. Through the metallic touch, Satoshi grins at me in my mind. That's what I should be asking, you know? I did this last year already. You should be more worried about yourself.
上等だぜ、サトシ。
Now we're having a conversation with pretend Satoshi in our head about the murder we're gonna commit.
目に物を見せてやろうぜ。
Show him a bad time. Oh, jeez. Satoshi's back got lighter and lighter. Fit into my hands like it was being absorbed. Didn't feel wrong to swing this. I could move it around so naturally, it was like an extension of my own right arm. Of course it felt like that. Satoshi and I were holding one bat together. Next, I would make the call to lure the man out. It wasn't a bad time for it. My friends were doubtlessly parading happily through the stalls. I hadn't considered where to make the call from. My house and Satoko's were pretty far apart. If I called from my house, I wouldn't make it. Couldn't I use the school phone? But, as I thought, the room was locked up and I couldn't get in. Shit. I'm so naive. Should have at least figured this part out. I couldn't call him. And just for that, was today all over? Sorry, Satoshi. Just as I cursed my own naivety, a miracle occurred. A bicycle came into the schoolyard. It was a familiar middle-aged man. One from the Forest Service field office. Why, wasn't today Sunday? Was he here to pick up something he forgot? Anyway, the forest officer went around back and felt around in his pocket, then unlocked the door and entered. Oh, that's a stroke of luck. Best possible coincidence. And it had to be Satoshi who saved me. Metal bat, through my contact with it, told me this was a chance I couldn't allow to slip by. The sections for the forest office and the school were neatly separated. Felt the man I head into the forest office's storehouse, which was so far in the back students were allowed into it. The door didn't match its fittings well, so it didn't close all the way, and the gap in the door opened slowly as if to lure me in. I took a deep breath and went in. Tiptoed along silently and stealthily and made it into the teacher's lounge. That was the only place with a phone. That's like really particular timing. That was good timing. Huh. As I held my breath in the teacher's lounge, I heard the Forest Service officer walking back over. And the back door clattered shut and was locked. I glanced out the window at the schoolyard and watched as the man got on his bike like nothing had happened and rode out the school gate. The school once again empty, becoming deathly silent. Waited for a bit, make sure the silence was the real deal, and reached to the telephone on the principal's desk. I fished Sadako's house phone number out of my pocket. Yes, the number in the class directory for Sadako had been the one from their house now, where she lived with her uncle. I touched the dial with my fingers, and then thought for a moment about what to say exactly when he picked up. Despite how many times I'd gone over it in my head last night. Now that I had my finger on the dial like this, it started to seep out of my mind like a cracked bucket leaking water. Simple would be best. More importantly, to say it straight and not sound suspicious. Counted off 3 heartbeats, and spun the dial. I'd be so nervous. I hate calling people now about not murder-related things. I'd be so nervous to call about murder. The call sound. Would Sadako's uncle pick up? Now, of all times, the hope that he wouldn't pick up, and the feeling of doom and the knowledge that I couldn't save Sadako if he didn't, rolled around in a vortex.
Moosh.
The voice of a grumpy man, like he had just woken up. He picked up.
Moosh.
Say your name, so I know you're a Hojo, asshole. It'd be terrible if I got it wrong. Made up my mind. I had all the initiative on my side. Here we go.
こちらは下根市沖宮警察です。北条さんのお宅ですか？
I was changing my voice, but did you really think I sound like an adult? What do you believe I was the police?
はい、北条ですけど。
今、お宅のお嬢さんの北条聡子さんをこちらで保護しています。
え、佐藤君があいつ何かやらかしおりましたか？
Fell for it. I could tell by how tense he was that he didn't doubt my words.
詳しい事情はこちらにいらしてからご説明します。すぐにこちらへ来ていただくことはできますか？
今ですか？風呂に入っちゃったからあんまし表に出たかないんですがね。
I already took a bath, so I don't really want to go out like this. Isn't that the ideal time when you want to go out? When you take a bath? What? You want to come here because you already took a bath?
はい、今すぐです。
すぐ。佐藤君のやつ何をしちゃっ
Don't
たんです
argue,
か？
just go.
詳しい話はこちらでいたします。ではお待ちしていますのでよろしくお願いします。
ちょっと俺警察署がどこかわかんないんだけど、どこよ場所？
Moron, what the hell? Okinomiya police station? I don't know where it is either. Aren't you from around here? Why don't you know that? Greasy sweat came over my body. Eventually, just as I was about to choke, he spoke.
消防署の隣でしたっけ？遠いな。
Well, then you better get moving. Thank goodness, you remembered on his own for me. I didn't care where the police station was, as long as he left his house to get there.
ではお待ちしていますので。
俺警察行ったら誰んとこ訪ねればいいんよ。あんた名前は？
Top of that, he wanted to know my name? Leave your goddamn house already.
前橋と申します。では失礼します。
That was close. Almost thoughtlessly told him my real name. Managed to change the last syllable of it, but put the receiver down like I was running away. Fingers were trembling and I was soaked with the tepid sweat. I wasn't just nervous about the phone call. That call, everything had finally been put into motion. He played that off like a champ, though. That was good. That was cold, Keiichi. Very calculated. I left the school. It was locked before, but it was easy enough to open from the inside. But I couldn't lock it again after I left. In terms of being thorough, I wanted to lock it, but I couldn't waste time going back to the teacher's lounge looking for the key. Needed to rush back as fast as I could and ambush him. I zoomed back to the scene on my bike. Satoko's uncle got out of town before I got there. Everything would be over. He learned there was no one at the station named Baibashi, and things would get pretty messed up. As I returned at full speed, I passed a family wearing yukatas. Must have been on their way to the festival. Many people in Hinamizawa knew my face, though I didn't know theirs. Even just passing by them like this made me uneasy. But I didn't generally come around here, so those living in the area might not have known much about me. It didn't matter right now. I needed to get back as fast as possible, to control my breathing and to ambush the man. Hid my bike in a thicket, picked up Satoshi's bat, which I just left hidden in the shade. And then I held my breath, waiting to see someone. I wondered if he still hadn't gotten here, or maybe he went right out after the phone call and passed by here already? Couldn't figure out which it was, and was set upon by an indescribable impatience. Calm down, Keiichi, my bara. Even if he came here already, he'd pass by here on the way back, right? The end result would be the same. Wouldn't change the fact that he'd die. Hopefully he takes this path. He seems very convinced he's going to take this path through the woods. He'd probably be coming on his motorcycle. How would I stop him then? Figured it would be best not to think too hard and just hit him as he passed, or beat him out of his seat. The path was made of pebbles. If I hit him as hard as I could and made him lose his balance, he wouldn't be able to help falling. And then, the chorus of the Higurashi stopped. The sound of a bike approached from far away. Couldn't tell what sort of motorcycle it was from its sound, but I'd seen it parked before, so I'd know. It's getting rapidly closer. It's almost here. Ooh, it just got so quiet. If he just went a little farther, he'd cross into that thicket and appear in front of me. I'd take a moment to make sure it was him. Then when I had, put my plan into action. Motorcycle appeared. A few easily identifiable characteristics told me it was Satoko's uncle's bike, without a doubt. Was it really him? Was it really Satoko's uncle? I wasn't making a mistake, was I? Look at its characteristics again. Its color, shape, most of all the man's clothes. And face. His last feelings of hesitation did away with him. Satoko. Now, your Nini will end it, okay? I done told y'all. I said once he started calling himself Nini, this wasn't going to end well. He decided he was going to be Nini. He decided he was going to act as Satoko's older brother in like episode 2 or 3. And I was like, this is a bad idea. This is going to lead to some disturbing shit. And now here we are, about to commit a murder. Closer, closer. The bike came closer. Let's go. Satoshi. And now we hear Satoshi talking to us. Whoosh. Jumped out of the thicket. Used my shoulder to basically tackle the uncle on the bike with all my might. Gave a dumb shout as if his bike completely lost its balance. Finally, it fell, the bike scattering clouds of sand, and after spinning, it stopped. Her uncle, tossed to the ground, didn't understand what had just happened and groaned for a few moments, crouched on the ground. Ha ha ha. My breathing started to become ragged. No, I couldn't have this emotion. Some weird secretion crossed through my brain and really made me hallucinate. Her uncle was groaning. That was the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What was I doing? The sounds of the world cut off. My mental chaos from a moment ago withdrew like a lie, and I could feel the temperature of my head rapidly cooling down. The tension in my muscles all went away like the strings they'd been attached to had been cut, and let my hands dangle at my sides. It wasn't quite like exhaustion. Have you calmed down now? Keiichi Maibara? You need to remember again why things got to this point today? Scrape. Scrape. Stepped over the pebbled path, taking one step, another step, then another towards Satoko's uncle. The more I walked, the more my breathing calmed. The more I walked, the more I felt my body cooling, calming, chilling with frost. Yes. At this moment, this guy had lost the permission to live. I had just rescinded it. So he mustn't stay in this world any longer. If he lived any longer, if Satoko's misfortune continued, it would be my responsibility for having allowed him to live. I could feel the cooling substance going through my whole body, even down to my capillaries. Her uncle was at my feet now, still on the ground like an idiot. I smiled coldly at how ridiculous he looked. That's all it took. For it to hurt? Satoko's heart hurt much more, and now you're gonna feel that. And with your life, I'll make up for her pain. Erase all unnecessary information from my mind. I prioritized the murder of this man. Execute, execute, execute. Sounds like a Dalek. Execute, exterminate, kill. Oh, well, there's the first swing. Wham! Utterly calmly, I delivered my first strike to the back of his head. I wanted to get at the most effective spot. At least during that first moment, I'd have to attack him while he was at his most defenseless. If he was hit in the head, he'd cover his head. His defensive reaction all humans made like machines. He used both hands to cover his head so he couldn't pick himself up off the heap he was on the ground. Pounding a caterpillar into the dirt, I hit him over and over. What a dark analogy. He covered his head, I'd hit him in the side. He covered his body, I'd go for his head. He rolled over, I'd strike his feet. His knees. There you go. I'm gonna break all the bones in your feet. His elbows. I didn't care where anymore. Just delivering one blow after another, I induced panic in him. I retained my overwhelming advantage, but I hadn't done nearly enough to deliver a fatal wound. Her uncle skillfully pulled himself off the ground and started to run like a fleeing rabbit. It wasn't a judgment he'd made after seeing my face and deciding whether to fight me. Right now he was fleeing by instinct, just trying to escape from the threat that had presented itself. A counterattack from the more physically capable uncle was what I was most concerned about. He may have run, but it wasn't all that unlucky. The odds were in my favor. The uncle didn't run away towards people, but off the path and into the woods. How pleasant that he would run in a direction where nobody else was. He was fleeing into strange geography like a rat that instinctively runs into tight spots over and over. Yes, he was no longer human. He was a rat. The blood vessels in my legs expanded and my total oxygen supply increased. I lowered myself to gain the most explosive velocity I could. Without breathing, I became a wind-like shadow and dashed. I crossed thickets, crushed dead tree branches underfoot, and dove through the woods like a bullet. He ran so cowardly, arms flailing as he went. After catching up to him, I didn't need so much as a blink of an eye to strike him again. My senses, mind, and body were all sharpened purely to kill this man. This was the first time I'd felt like this. Well, this was the first experience I'd ever had killing someone. It felt natural continuing to do this for the first time. And that meant I had this much talent for killing. Or perhaps the act of killing was so simple that anyone could do it. Again, very dark thoughts, Keiichi. I didn't struggle or grow tired at all chasing the clumsily fleeing uncle. No matter how much he ran, it was like trying to get away from his own shadow. He couldn't get away from me. I could easily aim at his back, his shoulder, and his head even from this unnatural stance. Each time I struck him, he wailed in pain and begged pitifully for forgiveness, but it didn't disturb my mind. I was neither excited nor plagued by hesitation like before. I felt sharp. I felt like a carnivore. Of course, so did the uncle, who was trying to run away because he didn't want to die. He didn't want to be eaten. Like an herbivore running with all its might, trying to get away. Despite all the attacks, despite all the hits, he kept on fleeing without even staggering. And despite the bad footing in the forest, he impressively never tripped over anything. But there was no need to admire that fact. It was simply proof that he was no more than an animal. If he was chased, he would run. If he was going to be killed, he would run. He bared his fangs at the weak, but couldn't oppose the strong whatsoever. He was lowly, vulgar, a diminutive animal. Such a puny little creature had harmed Sadako. Scar after scar to her body and mind, deep wounds that might not ever go away as long as she lived. Helly! I think it probably means help me, but it came out as Helly. Oh. My cold and calm emotions suddenly turned into bestial ones. My personality changed into something specialized for murder, purely to devour the diminutive animal before me. The uncle gave a puny little shriek, covered his head, and ran. I'm impressed by how much you can run. Fine, run as much as you like. I will be your death. I will choose the moment at my leisure. Your legs will hurt, your lungs will feel about to burst, your head will hurt from lack of oxygen. If you feel the pain has become worse than death, then by all means, stop any time. Without turning back, suffocating on his terror, the approaching death, he just ran shamefully onward. He ran, but was chased. His head bashed with a metal bat, sweat and drool flying everywhere, blood clinging to him. From his mouth came the sounds of coarse, irregular breathing and high-pitched screaming that verged on crying. He pleaded for forgiveness to someone I didn't know who. It is taking a really long time to kill him. I stand by the motion that if you just brought like a knife with him, like I know that they can't sell him any longer than 5 inches, but if you just plunge one in the back of his neck while he's lying there, like, he's done. This is taking an extraordinarily long time to kill him. Each and every second was a second of atonement that I granted him. Now run. Run. And fall and moan and die. Where did you even crawl out of anyway? You were never here before. If you were never here, you should never have showed up. If you never showed up, our lives would still be fun and enjoyable. We would have gone to today's festival and waited for each other and gone to the shrine laughing. We would have been playing amongst the stalls right about now. We'd be browsing the strange food stalls you saw only at festivals, trying to get prizes from goldfish scooping, ring throwing, or target practice. We actually have done that before in the Onikikushi chapter. We went to the festival. Those are like all the things that we did. Things only changed when the uncle showed up and started beating on Sadako. Mion would surely make it into a competition, and we as a club would have a grand time. We did that too. And everyone would have been cheering for Rika-chan's dedication dance. And everyone would say how fun it was. It would give us energy for days to come. Fun, enjoyable, and funny. Warm time spent with friends. And that would have happened, but it didn't. And now it was all smashed to pieces. There's no doubt that would be what the world was like if you never showed up. You were the obstacle, the mistake, the heresy in that world. But I would correct that mistake now. I would erase you and make it so that this last week never happened. Tonight was the Tanagashi Festival. The holy night where taking just one life was permitted in the name of Oyashiro-sama's curse. It looked like the Higurashi stopped crying at some point. When the Higurashi cried, everything would end. And the Higurashi silenced. Lowly one. The hour of atonement is at an end. The Higurashi have stopped their crying. Thus it is the end. The end. You don't have to run away anymore. Die, with those dirty brains of yours smashed everywhere. Wow. It's taking a very long time to kill this man. Lightning and thunder struck like an explosion. It was so loud it shook the ground, and I smelled gunpowder. The response I got this time was pretty different from the one before. Metal bat crunched into the crown of his head. It was like the top of his head had caved in. The bat felt like it was biting him. It had been the final killing attack that visited him. I didn't overlook the opening as he left as his knees gave out under him. I remained alert for a few moments, then thud, thud. Planted both knees in the ground, and then fell forwards, burying my head in the ground. I've been holding back my braggart breathing, but now it all came out of me like a dam bursting. My head was dizzy and light, and unable to maintain my balance, I leaned against a nearby tree. The uncle didn't try and guard his head any longer. After a disgusting sort of spasm, he stopped moving. Did I get him? Did I get him for sure? I fought back my exhausted urge to fall over where I stood, and drew towards him carefully, bat still at the ready. It's possible he was faking it and trying to wait it out. Should I check for a pulse? I realized right away, though, how unnecessary that would be. If I thought he might be faking it, then I would just have to keep pummeling him until I was satisfied. I fought back my ragged breathing again. Then I swung my bat far above and brought it down. Clunk. His body leaped like a bow, but he didn't try and cover his head. Once again, I aimed for his head and swung. The action was the same this time. Jesus, he's dead! After spending a few moments making his head into mochi, the hits gradually started to feel different. And it started to spray a filthy dark red liquid everywhere. Jesus, Keiichi. That was enough. It was definite now. Well, yeah, now that his head looks like a fucking pumpkin that you smashed open. Holy shit. What a way to go. I had absolutely killed him. There was no sense of accomplishment or one of regret. I didn't feel anger towards Sadako's uncle, nor pity towards Sadako herself. Instead, right now, I was feeling like my heart had been stolen by the downpour. It had begun to rain at some point, and how comfortable it felt. Rainwater drenched my body and dripped down to the ground. The excitement within me faded as the rain washed away the grime. In exchange, my shoes were so wet that they made splashing sounds. And despite abusing Satoshi's back like that, it wasn't bent very much. There were a few dents in it, probably from hitting the man, but nothing that would make it seem different from before. Instead, it had been stained with black, with red, with mud and blood. That thought itself would be evidence. One piece of evidence needed to prove that my delusions hadn't just been daydreams, and that I'd ended Sadako's uncle for all eternity. Alright, Keiichi. Calm your mind. Time for passion is over. Now it's time to be cold as ice. Needed to bury the body. Well, we done chased him like a mile into the woods. Are we gonna have to drag him all the way back? And what are we gonna do with the motorcycle? Are we just gonna leave that in the middle of the road? Like... But where was I? I simply followed the man as far as he ran into the darkness. I couldn't take a guess as to how far we'd run. It was already pitch black around us, and the only light I had to go on was the very faint lights of the road, a little further down. It was so dark out. I hadn't noticed the darkness until just now. My vision was so good I could see the man's ugly hairline. I could have counted the pores in his head. It was only now I realized how much crazy strength I had mustered at that moment. I went over to the streetlight. Looked up and down the road, desperately trying to figure out where I was. Oh no. This was the one road connecting Himazawa to the town. We were unbelievably far away from Sadako's house. Had the two of us really run so far a distance? My surprise at that was accompanied by knowledge of the miraculous fact that despite running so far and making so much noise, we hadn't come across anybody at all. There was a long way between here and the ambush location where I dug the hole. There was no way I could carry the body that far. Wait. Aside from that, the bike the man took was still lying in the middle of that path. That would be an issue. He could tell whose motorcycle it was by looking at its license plate. They wouldn't just leave it at that. Thankfully, the corpse was in a dark forest. There was of urgency dealing with the bike would come first. And I wanted to get the shovel back from where I left it next to the hole. I shouldn't drag the body there. Have to deal with it right here. Fortunately, the ground was like mud from the downpour and was more sludgy than where I was before. Might be able to dig a grave quickly here. Of course, my bicycle was still over where I left it too. It still wasn't over. Homicide had only been half of my goal. The other half would be just as important as the first. I would completely hide the body, not allowing a beginning to happen. I would erase the man like he never existed and regain the peaceful times we had before. I bent my head backwards and calmed my mind even further. The big water droplets stuck to my brow mercilessly. They were actually quite comfortable, and for a while I let my desire have its way. Confirming that I was sharp again, I started running through the rain. The motorcycle was in the grass at the roadside. Considering how it looked, pelted with rain and covered in mud, it actually seemed like it had been lying there for a very long time. The plan was to drop the motorcycle into the swamp. The swamp was a bit of a walk from here. I lifted the bike up. I didn't think it would be so heavy. I was a little surprised. Once I had it upright, it was fairly easy to roll along. Still, pushing this thing all the way to the swamp was not really something I wanted to do. I could no longer ignore my exhaustion, and it warned me numerous times how far away the swamp was. You think we could put it in that hole we buried? Is that deep enough? Motorcycle, I wonder if I could ride it well enough. Once I got it going, it would basically be the same as a bicycle. Wouldn't it get me to the swamp quickly? A plan suggested by my exhaustion, the anxiety at getting on a motorcycle the first time withdrew. Turned the key and you just kick this pedal, right? Yeah. Yeah. Vroom. It's on. And then I gripped the handlebars. First the right, then the left. Maybe I twisted them too much. The bike lurched and did a wheelie like an angry horse. Lost it for a second, but it's just a problem of how much torque to apply. Let's try that again. This time slowly, gently. That time it went well. It was strange to be on a two-wheeled vehicle that would go even if I didn't pedal. Very odd, but I got used to it quickly. Anne once told me you can get a scooter license within a day, and she was clearly right. This was pretty easy. Needed to throw the metal bat into the swamp too. But I didn't know how I would pack the bat onto the motorcycle. Not much other choice, I stuffed it in the back of my shirt, feeling like a ninja carrying a katana. I put the tip down, the seat of my pants, and hunched over, it wouldn't fall out. Got back on the bike, and this time, got going without any difficulty. I carefully pressed the button labeled light, and a rather strong light came on, illuminating the way forward. I really shouldn't have turned it on, but I didn't have any way of seeing at this point, and had zero confidence I could ride through this darkness. So, I mean, like, good plan, getting rid of the motorcycle, but now you're riding the motorcycle of a murder victim, and you're going to have to ride it on the path probably through town to get to the swamp. That's probably not great. Rain came down on me. I maintained a precarious balance and inched my way towards the swamp. Along the way, I ran across a few people who seemed to be returning from the festival. But none of them had any interest in me. They were either all soaked through with the rain and hurrying on their ways home, or had their umbrellas low and their heads down. Yesterday I might have been wary of these passerby, but right now I didn't seem to be much cause for concern. In fact, it would probably be less suspicious to be riding out in the open like this instead of sneaking around. More and more, though, I started to think of that idea as naive, brought on by my exhausted state. Well, yeah, like, people are going to be wondering where the uncle is, his bike is going to be missing, people are watching you ride his bike. 2 plus 2, Keiichi. Climbed a steep hill. On a bike, the hill would have put me out of breath, but I just had to accelerate a little bit to climb the entire thing. Motorcycles sure are convenient. For a moment, flights illuminated a sign before I passed by it. Onigafuchi Swamp. Good children do not play around here. Still, it wasn't like the way to the swamp was cordoned off by a metal fence or anything. Parents and teachers would get mad at you if they found you out here playing at the swamp, but some of the bad kids in my class apparently snuck out here sometimes to see the giant crayfish in the place. They talked before about how they'd go to the candy shop and buy some pickled squid and then just tie it to a fishing line and throw it. All the crayfish would come running. Once I got up to the bank, there was a tiny ritual shrine and traditional ropes on one of the trees. And as it swallowed the downpour whole, the blackened swamp had waited for me. If I slammed on the accelerator from the cliff-like stop I was on now, the thing would fly straight into the middle of the swamp. I had to be careful not to fall in with it. If I drowned and disappeared, man, what a stupid ghost story that would be. The night of Tatarigoroshi, Sadako's uncle's corpse was found in a thicket by the road leading to town, and Keiichi Maibara went missing. People would whisper that I'd been demoned away. The 5th year's curse would be a half-baked one. Got off the bike and twisted the accelerator as hard as I could. I let go just like when it seemed it would drag me forward. The bike shot off the cliff and was swallowed down in the swamp, leaving a far fainter splash than I imagined. The surface was being pummeled by the downpour, and the muddy, filthy water was flowing into it. Couldn't even make out the motorbike I'd just thrown in there. It was pretty heavy after all. It would be quickly engulfed by the soft mud at the bottom of the swamp. It would be pulled deeper and deeper until it reached hell itself. I felt no reluctance whatsoever in throwing the man's motorbike down to the land of the demons, but I did have a tinge of regret when I did with Satoshi's bat. Muddy water washed off the gore sticking to it, and it sunk easily. I had sort of shared today's events with Satoshi, so I wanted to give it a quiet place to stay. What happy music! I just committed cold-blooded murder. What a nice little piano medley. That's how I felt. I started to feel more like returning it to the locker room before, so it could continue to keep watch over Satoko.
Satoshi, 俺、多分、お前のこと、誤解してた。
Satoshi listened quietly without nodding. I'm absolutely convinced now. You were the one who beat your aunt to death last year and saved Sadako. I always scorned you and called you a coward who ran away, but I was wrong. To the rest of the world, some deviant was behind that incident. But I know. That was something you did for her. And then you disappeared. You finally got back that peace and lost it within days. So, I swear to you that I will live life to the fullest from now on. Live it enough for the both of us. I will live on as though this week, this day, never happened. But I will never forget the short time we shared together for as long as I live. I didn't know what expression Satoshi made as he listened, but as someone who had protected the same girl, I felt he had smiled and given me his blessing. And then, my hand moved of its own accord. And the bat I had hesitated to throw away left my hands and flew through the air. It traveled its parabolic path, spinning all the while, and the swamp absorbed it without a sound. There weren't even any ripples when it hit the surface. The surface was tempestuous because of the downpour, and the bat was long gone. For a moment, I regretted having thrown it, but I realized that might have been what Satoshi had wanted.
そうだよな。俺はまだ感傷に浸る余裕なんかないんだよ
I would return from my shovel, get on my bike, dig a hole to hide the body, and bury it. It seemed like a simple sequence of events, but I felt extremely exhausted, and I had to do it all tonight. Satoshi left me with the only advice that I needed to finish this up soon. He fell silent for eternity and disappeared at the bottom of the demon's abyss. I returned to the path I had ambushed your uncle on. My bike was hidden, sleeping in the brush. I stood it back up. My whole body felt heavy, but I needed to finish by the end of the day, even if I had to whip myself to do it. Oh, I forgot something. I didn't just come here for my bike. The shovel was here too. Not good. I was zoning out. Every once in a while, if I let my guard down, my vision would go almost black. Pull yourself together, Keiichi, my bara. If you pass out in the middle of a committed murder, I'm going to be very mad at you, Keiichi. Still not over. You put so much planning and thought into this. If you just, like, pass out from stress, I'm going to the grove of trees and look for the hole in which I'd hidden the shovel. Fortunately, I'd hidden it deep in the forest, not wanting to be seen, and everything was black in the night, and I couldn't see anything anymore. I reawakened my fading consciousness and realized just how big this annoyance really was.
な。おい、マジかよ。
The sweat the rain washed way before came back up to my skin. Deep, deep in the forest where the streetlights could never reach. The fact that it would be so pitch black had been completely uncalculated. This much darkness, even if I had been able to kill the guy right away like I'd planned, I didn't know if I still could have buried him without a problem. What should I do? Simply couldn't find the shovel tonight. If I forced myself to go deep into the forest, I'd lose even my sense of direction. Might actually get lost in there. It might have been an exaggeration, but it was fully possible I'd trip over a tree root and sprain a muscle. Right. My house's storage room, there was another shovel there. The same fold-up kind. Couldn't I go back to the house, get the shovel, and give up on finding the shovel tonight? Not as the name Maibara is written on the shovel. I really hope it's not written on the shovel, Keiichi. But it seemed like an unusual item from an import variety store made in another country, so I didn't want to leave that shovel here. But in this darkness, I couldn't do anything. I should give up and go back to the storage room. And there was an electric lantern there. If I used that for light, I could look for it. But it was so extremely dark. Could I light the way with just a lantern? Light of a lantern in this dark night. Couldn't discard the possibility of it drawing eyes. And I doubted if I could find the shovel with the lantern's feeble light. Besides, I left the body there for a pretty long time already. My sense of fear, dulled through excessive exhaustion, finally reared its ugly head. Anyway, for now, the most important thing was to hide the body. The shovel being found wouldn't be a big deal, but the corpse? If they found that, I'd share the same fate as Satoshi. First, I go back to the storage room at home. Then I get the lantern. Now that it's gotten this dark, I still might need the light to dig a hole for the body too. And I get the other shovel. And then I deal with the body first thing. Once that was done, I'd come back here, find the shovel, and bring it back. I had to do at least that much, but I was so tired. Complaining was getting me nowhere. If I started getting complacent now, everything would have been for naught. At some point, I had sat down. I gritted my teeth and endured, lifting my heavy hips. The night was young. Of all the nights I'd experienced, there had never been this long. When would it all end? The night was young. Damn, Keiichi. So, I will give it to him. He had it, like, pretty well planned out. The execution of the murder, it's like afterwards I didn't really think about. It got very dark very quickly, He probably should have brought the shovel with him or found some way of, like, marking the hole for his body. So, like, the murder went off pretty well. Just, like, afterwards is the problem. Lights at home were dazzlingly bright. Suddenly they reminded me of how hungry I was. I checked the clock and saw that it was almost 7. I thought for sure it was 2 or 3 in the morning already. I was surprised at how messed up my biological clock had gotten just from this one night. There was a warm light coming from the curtains in the living room window. The world between here and what was behind those curtains was so different. If only that man hadn't shown up, I would have been in that light. I'd still be excited from the festival, and I'd be talking to my parents about how much fun I had with all my friends. And then, even though they made a hot meal for me, I would have eaten way too much at the stalls, barely eaten any of it, and gone back to my room. No doubt I'd crawled into my futon and easily let myself fall asleep. But right now I was completely different. There wasn't a single ember of warmth from those weak streetlights. Right now, I was unconnected to any time spent with my family. There was neither warm food, nor the time to allow myself to sleep. My body exposed to the cold rain. I knew that I simply had to spur myself on to accomplish what I must. I realized how timid, how cowardly I was becoming. For what reason did I need to kill someone? Even if it felt this terrible. I lost sight of my purpose. I selected the fastest, most fundamental way of saving Sadako, and executed it without hesitation. That man was dead. He was gone. We'd never ever hurt Sadako again. We all thought frantically for days on end about Sadako's problem, and finally, with no options, we gave up. And I had solved it in one night. By myself, without anyone's help. Right about now, Sadako would be making dinner for her uncle, despite not knowing when he'd return. And she might be spending the night trembling in fear of whether he'd yell at her for how it tasted. But her uncle wouldn't come home. She wouldn't have to fear his wrath, nor let him make her feel sad. I see. I did it. I successfully saved Sadako. All I'd been thinking about for a long time was killing that man, and I'd forgotten the feeling that it was actually all to save her.
そっか
Laughter is not really the appropriate response here, Keiichi. Wrong move. I did something good. That's right. I did something good, didn't I? I felt hot tears coming from my eyes. That's when I first realized that the exhaustion I've been feeling was actually guilt. The blade of guilt for a while now had just been scraping away with its tip, hurting my heart. It hurt so bad I couldn't stand it. It was throbbing painfully. It hurt so much, it was so painful that I cried. I cried tears of joy at saving Sadako. I didn't know why, really, anymore. I just cried. My tears fell and fell. As I stood there for a while, coming to terms with those warm tears, my heart was comforted a little. All right, Keiichi Maibara. That's enough. Nothing to regret or feel ashamed about. Both my body and mind were thoroughly exhausted, and that was a fact. It's only natural I couldn't feel anything. Even tomorrow and the day after that, I might not be able to feel anything for a while. But there was one thing that was true. There was the undisputable fact that I had saved Sadako. One day, we would surely be rewarded. One day I would be proud of how distressing an enterprise I had undertaken to get Sadako's smile back. And so that I could wait for that day, I had to put the finishing touches on this night. If I left it undone, everything I accomplished today would be for naught. I looked back up at the sky, which didn't look like it would stop raining anytime soon. Then I rubbed my eyes and summoned forth energy from my core again. How long did I plan on spacing out? This isn't the time for daydreaming. Someone could find that corpse this very moment. That pessimistic thought was the proof the very natural emotion of fear had returned to me. As I allowed the fear to spur me onwards, I went to look for the other shovel and the lantern inside the storage room. It was fortunate I remember what it looked like around the streetlight the body was near. With how dark it was quite possible I wouldn't have been able to look for it either. I didn't realize that when I left the place, so the idea of memorizing the spot hadn't even crossed my mind. And that's why I had to call it fortunate that I managed to get back to the body like this. The corpse is now located in a big muddy puddle. Half the thing had already sunk into the swamp-like pool of water. I only realized afterwards, but there was an unused irrigation channel right nearby, clogged with fallen leaves and dirt, and there was rainwater flowing in from there. My shoes had been washed with water for a long time now, so without any hesitation I stepped into the puddle. The whole muddy stream started flowing back, luckily. Couldn't leave any slight traces, like bloodstains. Rain was like a blessing from heaven. I checked around me, paying very close attention, and turned off the lantern. It became pitch black, but my eyes got used to the darkness in a few moments. And once I managed to reach the streetlight on the other side, I was able to make out even faint lights. I stuck the shovel into the puddle right next to the corpse. The ground was even looser here than I thought, and the shovel's tip easily slid into it. I had to hurry and dig. If I took too much time, I might lose my energy and strength again. It felt almost like digging a hole in the sand at the beach. It was easy to dig, but no matter what, the muddy water kept flowing in, covering the hole. Digging wasn't going as well as I'd hoped. I dug, and water would go in, but I couldn't get a sense of how deep it was. The only way for me to measure it was to bury my own foot in the mud. I'm digging just fine. It's alright. Don't be disheartened. Dig, dig, dig. Occasionally a car would come by on the road, and I'd hurry to hide myself in the trees. Everyone was only passing through. Wouldn't have their eyes peeled in this kind of darkness. I understood it logically, but still, it couldn't help but hide. What was I really scared of? It wasn't quite that one of those cars would coincidentally happen to witness me here. It was that the distance I could spot cars from was getting gradually shorter. First, I noticed the splashing sounds from really far away as cars drove through them. I started noticing them less and less, and with the car that just passed by, I didn't notice it until its headlights were upon me. I felt my senses growing duller by the second. If someone were to take a peek in secret, as I was burying the body at the worst possible time, maybe I wouldn't even notice. When I thought that, I took a good look all around me. I aroused all my half-asleep senses and searched for signs of presence nearby. What if I found out someone was spying on me from the trees? Covered in his feelings snarled at me, glaring. There was, and I would dig another hole. That's dark, Keiichi. Don't do that. I've come this far already. In order to achieve perfection, I didn't care how much more I had to pay. I didn't know what kind of face I was making at that time, but it was definitely a fervently glaring one. I don't like that noise. My 5 senses reached a conclusion. Nobody was present. I didn't breathe a sigh of relief. How long I had been digging this mud out here? It was deep enough for me to go up to my knees. Maybe this was enough. Maybe I threw the corpse in as a test. Swallow, getting my breathing under control. Despite how much I'd beaten him, I was afraid of touching the corpse. So instead I dragged it by the feet into the hole. It took more than just a waggle and tug to do it. But of course it did. Considering this man's weight was easily 80 kilograms. I relied all my strength and dragged him. At this point, my groundless fears that he might suddenly start moving again had vanished long ago. His body fit perfectly into the muddy hole. It was more than deep enough. Alright, let's bury him. Quickly, quickly, quickly. If we did a perfect job burying it here, everything would be over. I would hide it in the hole, and none of this would ever have happened. When I realized I only had a little farther to go to finishing everything, I was racked with pointless anxiety, like I was in a race against time. It was like I was absorbed in a delusion that if I didn't bury the body quickly, it might come back to life. In any case, in a great rush, I poured mud and dirt into the hole. If it didn't work efficiently, someone might find me here. Until now, I figured if someone saw, I'd just kill them, but not anymore. I was arrested with such absolute fear that if someone saw me, it would be all over. As I finished the work off, it was a total mess. Splish splash, squish squash. I drew the surface of the shovel across the ground, trying to make it flat. Completely covered in mud at that point. Rain washed the mud off my body, but not of my now blackened clothing. My body and mind were caked with panic, with fear, with rain and sweat and mud. We're gonna have to get rid of those clothes, baby. My shoulders heaving, I threw down the shovel and sat down in the mud. I was so exhausted that I wanted to lie down right here and sleep. Don't do that. It was over. Don't forget the other shovel. They could trace that back to you. It's time for real. It was over. Man was now in the bottom of the wet dirt. Right this moment, there were traces that this place had been dug up, but the rain and the flowing muddy water were completely covered all within moments. Yes, it was over. You motherfucker! And I fell over backwards, face up in the mud. Raindrops pelted my face without mercy, but I didn't care. Staying there for a while, resting my mind, I got up again. It was over. So let's go home. We already buried the whole thing. Now it's like it never happened. It never happened, so no reason for me to stay out here and get rained on. I wobbled to my feet. I wouldn't use the shovel anymore. I considered disassembling it, but I didn't have the strength in my absolute exhaustion. I didn't really need to take it apart anyway. Dragging the shovel behind me, and I headed towards the light. Stood up my bike, and been laying in the grass by the road. I didn't know how I was going to get the still assembled shovel into the front basket. Put the shovel down the back of my shirt like I done with the baseball bat. Unlike the bat, the corner of it was on my back, making it very painful. Plus, if I relaxed my posture even a little, it would fall out behind me. I ended up having to carry the shovel in my left hand and ride my bike using only my right hand. Not only was I in a state of total exhaustion, this was a downpour. One hand on the handlebars. I was swaying to and fro like a drunk. But I didn't care. Even swaying like this, I got a little closer to home every time I pedaled. I saw two lights swaying slowly in front of me. A car was approaching. Oh no, I need to get out of the way. From far away in the shadows of the darkness, a car appeared. Dazzling lights washed over me. Get out of the road! The driver made a short honk of the horn to inform me I was in the middle of the road. I have to get out of the way. I kept telling myself that, but not only was I riding one-handed, I was exhausted, so I couldn't do anything. Wobble, 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 wobble. Meandered about, not going to the right or the left. The driver decided to swerve out of the way right in front of me, and without lowering its speed much, came steadily towards me. Its outline grew larger in my vision. Telling myself once again that I really needed to get out of the way, I jerked the handlebars in one direction, and lost my balance and fell over again, bike and all. My whole body splayed out, one foot got caught in the bike. This was seriously bad. My drowsiness quickly vanished, and just as a cold sweat broke over my body, the driver recklessly spun the wheel to the left, made a counterclockwise U-turn, and came right up to me and stopped. The driver's seat door opened, and the driver came out. You idiot, what are you doing here? Pretty sure someone would yell at me like that. Takano? It was a woman's voice and one I knew. Oh no! We've been caught! By someone we know. I lifted my face off the ground and looked at her. Well, shit.
Takano-san.
Uh-oh. Well, there goes any alibi we might have had. It was raining far too hard to see the moon. Takano-san unfolded an umbrella and smiled as she spoke. The smile was, for some reason, uncanny, like she seen right through me. Out of all the people I could have met, I got the feeling that this was the one I wanted to see the least. How are we going to explain this one? She'd come here via car. She wouldn't have known what I was doing. And yet, she smiled as though she knew everything. Calm down, Keiichi, my bara. She always makes that mysterious-looking smile, remember? Don't let her on to anything, lest you dig your own grave. Yeah, that's what I'm using it for. Should tell a good lie here. If I could just do that, things would work out.
レナと宝探しにダム現場に行った時にこれを忘れてきちゃったんですよ。
That's a pretty good lie.
それをこの土砂降りの中取りに行ったわけ？
家を出た時は降るとは思いませんでしたので。
あら、降り出したのは結構前よ。あなたずいぶん前から表にいるのね。
まあそのお月へ歩いてましたから。
それにあなた向こうからこっちに向かってきたんでしょ。ダムとは場所も方向も正反対よ。
Well, we just got caught in a lie. Takano-san was clearly aware that something exceedingly abnormal was happening with me. And as she played her little word game, she was enjoying driving me into a corner. Maybe she had a vague guess just from the situation of what I'd been doing. My timing really sucked. To run into her, of all people, of all the times. At the very end, I could only be frustrated by terrible luck. Well, why were you riding on the road? That was a foolish idea. We've done so much, and the end was literally right around the corner. So why? Why at the very end did I run into her of all people? Like we should have been riding through the woods. What do you do, Keiichi Maibara? Still holding something that could be a dangerous weapon. Will you silence Takano-san? I wouldn't. I don't like her much either, but I wouldn't do that. Even if it... listen to him! Even if it would be simple to kill Takano-san, doing it with the car she'd come in afterwards would be an issue. So, he wanted to kill Satoko's uncle because he was abusive, and he was, like, making her life hell. And now he's just, like, planning someone else's murder because he's been caught. Like it's nothing. I couldn't drive a car. It's completely different from a motorbike. But even if the car was here, as long as there's no proof I killed her. Yes, in tonight's downpour without any prior planning, all by coincidence. A hit and run. Listen to him. As long as I didn't drop any handkerchiefs with my initials on them, they would never know I killed her. A black flame quietly smoldered and raged in the core of my body. Like, it's time for you to go, Takano, before the little boy kills you. Takano-san started to laugh by herself, then thankfully stopped talking about it. But the dark clouds in my mind didn't go away. If I moved, she would leave. So I tried to get the bicycle up and out of the way, but then twisted my ankle in it and fell over. There's a sharp pain in the ankle I'd twisted. This is nonsense. Sprained ankle now? Takano-san squats down and takes a good look at the ankle I keep rubbing. He compares it to my facial expression, apparently trying to gauge how bad the wound was. Great. This is not going well. I didn't expect to, but I couldn't even stand up. It was all I could do to shamelessly wriggle on the ground like a caterpillar. Takano-san looked at her watch, then at her car, and after thinking for a moment, opened the passenger seat door, and then gave me her shoulder to stand up with. Yeah, good thing. Nobody good has ever called themselves a nice person, but it would have been a terrible thing to say to someone holding me up like this. Took Takano's hands and sat down in the passenger seat. Takano-san went around the back and looked at my bike on the ground. You could clearly tell from her face that she thought it would be a pain since it would be heavy and it would get her car dirty. But my bike has the name Maibara written on it. Couldn't leave it out here like this. Yeah, sorry. Fuck your car. We're bringing the bike. Turn back to the back seat and see someone's folding bicycle back there already. Still looked big enough to fit my bike in there as well. My expression reflected my thoughts, and the exact thought seemed to go through her to get through to her. Stop calling yourself nice. Takano-san continued with her mean jokes, but she hoisted my bike and loaded it into the back seat for me. Mean jokes are one thing, but couldn't you do something about that eerie smile of hers? And even more importantly than the bike, I didn't want to leave the shovel here. The shovel could be directly connected to the buried body and to me. Takano-san gave me a clearly dubious expression. The more I talk, the worse it gets for me. That's how I felt, so I didn't force myself to answer her. Eventually outlasted by my silence, Takano-san gave a short shrug and sighed. Takano-san brought over the shovel that was lying in the middle of the road. clutched it like I'd never let go of it again. Takano-san watched me with a puzzled look. They were acting super suspicious right now.
じゃあ行くわよ。前原くんのお家ってあの前原屋敷
The
で
Maibara
いいんでしょ
Mansion?
なんでみんなうちのことを前原屋敷って呼ぶんですか？
だって現にお屋敷じゃない。お金持ちが羨ましい
As she spoke, Takano-san pulled the handbrake and stepped on the gas. Making a skillful U-turn using the shoulder of the road, she steadily increased in speed. From the rearview mirror, that accursed place seemed to melt into the darkness.
わ。慣れた？
あ、すみません。よく聞こえませんでした。今、なんて？
Takano-san suddenly tried to say something to me, but thoughtlessly I didn't catch it. Looking ahead, Takano-san said the same thing one more time.
したい。
What?
上手に埋められた？
Thought my heart might beat out of my chest, but I didn't let it show. My lungs were squeezed tight and I couldn't breathe.
何を言ってるんですか？
こういう山奥に死体を埋めるときはね、結構深く掘らないと野犬とかが匂いを嗅ぎつけて掘り返しちゃうことも多いのよ。野犬が加えてた人骨で事件が発覚。警察一帯を山狩りへなんて結構ないことじゃないのよ。
What is happening? Don't laugh. What the fuck are you talking about? I mean, obviously, like, carrying a shovel in the rain on your bicycle late at night, like, brings up some thoughts to you, but holy shit. Pound, pound, clang, clang. Huge rusted bells started ringing in my head. Had I buried it so deep that I could say it absolutely wouldn't be found? That's your first thought? What about the fact that Takano knows what you just did? The answer was no. It was such a rush to bury him, get it over with, that I couldn't deny having possibly buried it too close to the surface. No, wait. That's not... Wait, anyway. This woman, how does she know? She just passed by here in a car by coincidence. We ran into each other by coincidence. If she'd been watching the entire thing from the trees, and once I left she came back in her car? Didn't make logical sense. So then why? Keiichi Maibara, that's it. You need to kill her. I hope she's just playing like another mean joke on us. Like, oh, ha ha ha, how was the body you buried? My entire body reawakened and I could feel my pupils dilate. Couldn't possibly beat her to death with a shovel in such a small car. Then I would use my hands and strangle her. But she was driving right now. If I strangled her, we might get into an accident. And suddenly, Takano-san turned and looked at me.
ボケもツッコミもなし？
For a moment, I was surprised. What was she talking about?
私たちあんまり相性は良くないみたいね。
Takano-san said, disappointed, returning her gaze ahead. I repeated the words she said a few times in my head and finally realized she meant it as an off-color joke. I didn't know whether it was a really good joke, but I wouldn't be able to fool her no matter how many lies I told. Right now, with her driving the car like this, I couldn't kill her. I'm having a harder time of doing it when I got back to my house. Stop planning the murders of people. When will your lust for blood end, Keiichi? When will it be quelled? That moment we met, that had been my best chance. I missed it so easily, it hurt. After that, Takano-san didn't say a single word. The car was completely buried in almost suffocating silence. What kind of woman had I run into? Everything that happened today, I managed to pull it off, and at the very end of it all, I just had to go home and go back to sleep. With bad luck. The screen's getting darker. Are we blacking out? My sleepiness gradually overtook me. The anxiety I felt steadily started to matter less and less. This alright, Keiichi Maibara? You probably should not leave this woman alive. Right now, I'm tired. Stepped on the brakes and I jerked against my seatbelt. Woke me up. Thought I must have fallen asleep by accident. Oh, there's our house. Looked out the window and there was a big building with faint lights on. really dark out, but I knew immediately it was my house.
今ご家族を呼んでくるわね。少しの間だけど一人でお留守番できるかしら。
バカにしないでください。それにほら、もう大丈夫です。一人で歩けますから。
あらあら、さっきは痛そうな顔して肩まで借りたのに、ひょっとしてお姉さんに甘えてみたかったから。
Takano-san spoke, she left the car and opened up her umbrella. The sound of falling raindrops was fierce, as always. Carefully reached down and rubbed the ankle I'd twisted. There was still some pain and a little weirdness, but they weren't that bad anymore. Rather than being happy about how light the wound was, I first regretted this whole thing. If I hadn't twisted my ankle, I could have still taken the option of killing Takano-san right there and then. Like, you're still planning these murders of these people. I thought we were done with this. There probably wasn't much doubt that Takano-san was convinced I was involved in some sort of crime. She knew about everything that happening with Sadako, then she might even guess I'd killed somebody. Click. Takano-san opened the passenger side door for me.
本当に肩は必要ないかしら。もう一回だけ甘えてもいいのよ。
No thanks, you should probably go before Keiichi kills you. I ignored her and answered her by getting out of the car myself. The rain was still pretty intense. Got my bicycle out of the back seat. I was a bit curious who the other bike belonged to, but that didn't matter right now. I let Takano-san hold the umbrella over me and then pushed my bicycle up to the front door.
ありがとうございます。もうここまでで大丈夫です。
My ankle hurt so much earlier, and it still did, but it aggravated me that it hadn't even been that bad. It was really, seriously, terrible luck.
じゃあ私はこれで失礼するわね。前原くんと二人きりで夜のドライブだったなんて。みんな特に二郎さんにはね。
Jiro-san. Oh, the photographer. Jiro-san? Oh, she meant Tomatake-san. Suppose she calls him by his first name. His full name must be Jiro Tomatake then. And then the other bike, holding one in the back seat that I didn't care about at first, suddenly came to mind. Excuse me, you're from Hinimazawa, right? The day before yesterday, as I walked near the dam, half asleep, Tomatake-san had talked to me. The bicycle had been riding. It was...
あの後ろに積んであった自転車、富武さんのですよね。
Takano-san's eyes, I think they sharpened for a moment.
どうしてそう思うのかし
以前に会った時見てますから。フレームも特徴的でしたし。
ら。でもおかしくないかしら。この自転車が二郎さんのものだなんてことありえると思う？
I mean, I've assumed that you were, like, banging each other.
おかしいって。
I mean, it wouldn't be that weird. But you're making it weird now. Takano-san, her hair elegantly fluttering, peers into my eyes.
だってひなみ沢には民宿なんてないのよ。なら二郎さんは町に泊まっていることになるわよね。
そうなんですか？まあ、そうならそうなんじゃないですか？
町からひなみ沢まではとても歩いてなんか行き来できないわよね。バスだって走ってないし、せめて自転車くらいはなきゃね。
She didn't need to tell me that. That's why Jiro-san was riding a bike.
その二郎さんの自転車が私の車に積んであって、二郎さんは私の車に乗っていないならおかしいじゃない。二郎さんはひなみ沢で自転車なしってことになっちゃうわよ。二郎さんを放っておいて自転車だけが私の車に積んであるなんてね、ありえないでしょ。
Well, now you're making it weird. She spoke. Takano-san made eyes like a hawk. Fortunately, I didn't really understand. What was so odd?
それの何がおかしいんですか？高野さんは富武さんとは仲がいいんですよね。何かの用で自転車を積んであげたって。別におかしいことだとは思わないですけれど。
そうじゃないでしょ。 つまりこのひなみ沢において二郎さんとその自転車がバラバラに存在することはありえないということなのよ。以上の理由からこの自転車が二郎さんのものであるわけがない。理解できたかしら？
Takano-san's roundabout way of talking was hard to comprehend, but that eeriness I could feel, that vague dreadfulness, I didn't like it at all. I don't either. But the most wild instinctive part of me warned me not to pry.
あれは私の自転車なのよ。二郎さんに選んでもらったからセンスが似てるのは間違いないけれどね。
あ、そうだったんですか。
No.
どうりで似てると。
No, you don't see. You don't see at all.
私とあなたは今夜出会わなかった。
Now she's talking about something completely different.
何を言ってるんですか。
私とあなたは今夜出会わなかった。
I stayed there not knowing what to say, and Takano-san repeated her eerie, succinct phrase to me again.
私とあなた。私とあなた出会わ
You
な
are
か
a
った。
spooky ass lady. Something cold and unpleasant crawled up my spine. I knew, because I'd killed a person with my own hands before. Before I came to the conclusion that I only had one chance to beat this woman to death to keep her quiet, and I couldn't hesitate. So I could tell that she'd arrived at the very same conclusion. Instincts warned me again. Wish I never met this woman. The faint sense, like a rotting smell, drifting from this woman was no doubt the exact same sense that I was giving off right now. A very peculiar aspiration, the lack of uncertainty at taking a human's life for a purpose. One that only those who have risen above everything had. Actually, maybe I should have called it a nausea. It meant, and I didn't know how to explain this very well, but Takano-san was the same as me. In other words, someone who shouldn't have been here. Someone I couldn't have let anybody know was here. Someone who nobody would have wanted to see. Now that we could calmly pretend as though we never met. Yes. Meant that just like I wanted to have nothing else to do with her, she didn't want anything to do with me either. And she too wanted to make it so we never met. Both of us wished for the same thing. Our desires were the same, which meant Takano-san's suggestion was extremely practical. And that I couldn't outright refuse.
それでいいなら、そういうことでもいいです。俺と高野さんは今夜出会わなかった。
Hold on, I have thoughts on this. We're gonna wait for this conversation to finish, and then we're gonna circle back around.
そうよね。あなたにとってもその方がいいでしょうから。
どうしてそう思うんですか。
いちいちうるさいわ
Those are
ね。
some spooky eyes.
それくらい自分で考えられないの、坊や。
She cut me off with the condescending word boy. Right in front of my house, in a place most unsuited to killing. And yet, there was a frozen thirst for blood coming from both of us. I would be killed right here, right now. Yeah. And I should have definitely beaten her as we passed each other. A damp, greasy sweat broke out of my body. That's fine. If you want me, you can come any time. When I made up my mind, she shook her hair elegantly and turned on her heel.
よかったわね。私が優しい人で。
What was good? How? Because she was a kind person? Was that it? I didn't get it. Takano-san got into her car. We didn't exchange any words of parting. I performed a massive feat, the killing of Sadako's uncle, and yet I didn't feel any accomplishment. On the holy night of Oyashiro-sama's curse, in which the taking of another's life was allowed, on the terribly rainy night when the demons wandered, as agents of Oyashiro-sama's will. The demons were never supposed to meet, but suddenly they did. The demons parted ways triumphantly. There was no reason for them to fight. Both their objectives had already been accomplished. With the rain hitting me like a waterfall, my eyes met with Takano-san's through the car window. The female demon, her mouth twisted into a distorted, fearless smile. It was too late to kill her. Far too late. That first moment, the very first moment we saw each other, had been my best chance. And now that we had parted like this, I was acutely aware of it. I should not have let her live. She beeped her horn quickly, then our car drove away into the deluge. One woman who knew what really happened tonight disappeared into the dark. As long as she was alive, this night would never really end. Just get into an accident, I thought to myself. In this downpour, slip on some mud or something, and fly face first into a tree, and die. It wasn't a delusion, a wild flight of fantasy. It was an earnest wish. Yes, it was a command. Die. Die. Keep your mouth shut for eternity. Because I have no doubt you're wishing for me to die all the same. I curse upon her fate emptily as Takano-san's taillights disappear into the utter darkness. This is wild. I did not expect this. The car's lights were completely out of sight now. Even the sound of the engine faded into the sound of the heavy rain and was inaudible now. I, too, turned on my heel to draw the curtains on this insane night, to open my front door and end it all. I began walking towards the front door. I was covered in mud, and I made a squishing sound with every step I took. Squish. Squish. Don't worry, Keiichi, my bara. Squish. Squish. She'll die. Squish. Squish. Her end will be as miserable as she is. I'll throw her into some flames alive and let her dance until she's burned to a crisp. I'll burn her to ashes in the fires of hell itself until she's roasted as much as she deserves.
そう願うぜ。本気でな。
Squish. Huh? Just now, I hadn't taken a step. And yet, a footstep. That emotion, I turned around. There was a footprint that wasn't my own, that it was obvious somebody else was behind me. Was somebody else there? I was sick of this. Whoever it was, I was sick of everything tonight. This time I would kill them. Kill them without a second thought. I wouldn't hesitate to turn around and dig another hole. Fortunately, there was nobody there. Who else heard footsteps? Shion. Shion did, right? In the Watanagashi chapter, our last one. She kept talking about hearing sounds and footsteps. I think it was Shion that said that. I wasn't going to kill any more people tonight. This night I couldn't handle any more of it. Even if I heard an extra footstep every time I stopped, I put it down to me just being tired. Wow. That was a freaking wild episode. Holy crap. So, my thoughts. In the Onigafuchi chapter, we had a death and a disappearance. Jiro-san died by clawing out his own throat. And Takano disappeared. We know we got an achievement, taking extra steps. We know that a lot of the events in these timelines repeat themselves. Like the festival repeats itself, and like some of the competitions and tournaments and stuff repeat themselves from the gamer group. Did Takano kill Tomitake? Is that what she was talking about? She said her trunk was full, and she had his bike in the back seat, and told Keiichi that the two of them never saw each other that night. So did she kill Tomitake in this chapter and in the Onigafuchi chapter? Like, I don't know. This is like, I'm speculating here, but I feel like it's all connected. Alright, Fire from Hell. That was crazy.
はい、もしもし。救急ですか？消防ですか？
消防です。
火事ですか？事故ですか？落ち着いて話してください。
多分火事だと思います。こちらは中部高速の柿内サービスエリアなんですけどね。裏の山からなんだかすっごい火と煙が上がってるのが見えるんですよ。あんなところ誰も立ち入らないから、なんで火がついてるのかよくわかんないですけど、とにかく連絡した方がいいと思って。山火事にならないとも限らないし。
わかりました。すぐに現場を確認しますので、そちら様のお名前とすぐに連絡のつく電話番号、それから火災現場の詳細な場所をお願いします。
消防司令部より通達。G ブロック西側山斜面にて不審火の通報あり。街道から離れていることからカップルの焚き火か不法投棄のゴミに放火したかの可能性があります。現場は深い森林地帯。周辺に民家はないが延焼の可能性あり。直ちに現場を確認されたし。
消防署ですか。こちらは G ブロック第3消防分隊です。通報の現場にさっき到着。ドラム缶が一つ山中に放棄され炎上しているのを確認しました。火は鎮火しつつあり、延焼の可能性はなし。で、
There's a body in it, right?
ドラム缶の中に
This has happened before.
人じゃないかと思うんです。
In the Watanagashi chapter, didn't somebody die in an oil drum, and everybody said that Tomitake had died and Takano had died, and they said that the person in the oil drum was Takano, right? I think so. It's been a while since I played it, but... So is Takano dead again? I distinctly remember in one of the police reports, in one of the chapters we played, there was 2 bodies, and I think it was a Watanagashi chapter, because 2 people were supposed to die and 2 people were supposed to disappear. And I think Tomitake died, and they found a body in the oil drum, and they said it was Takano. Interesting. And this is the road where Tomitake died. In the Onigafuchi chapter, he clawed out his own throat.
そういうことになるんですかね。毎年いろんな殺し方を見せてくれますが、今年は特に際立っていますね。
自分で自分の喉をかき破
Clawing out
る
your
な
own
んて
throat. That's Tomitake.
普通じゃないっす。
あとは鑑識のじい様に任せましょう。きっと何かの怪しげな薬物を検出してくれるに違いありません。
お疲れ様です。お疲れ様です。
ああ、おいさん、小宮山さんたちが到着しました。
大石さん、お疲れ様です。今年は一等来てるのが出たらしいじゃないですか。
裏を書かれました。私はてっきり今夜死ぬのは北条哲平だとばかり思ってたんですがね。
仏は何者です？
富武二郎。
Yep.
年に何回かひなみ沢に来てる趣味の写真家さんです。ノーマークだったな。
どうなんでしょうね。北条宅にずっと張り付いてたのがバレて、ターゲットを変更したとか。
They were watching the Hojo residence the entire time?
かなあ。恨めったな。
で、北条哲平の方は何も問題なし。
ねえ、夕方頃に娘が祭りに出かけて、その少し後にバイクで出かけまして、先に娘が帰ってきて、あれまだ帰ってないかな。どっかで飲んだくれてるのかな。
大石さんいらっしゃいますか。高杉課長からです。1号車の無線にお願いします。
So they were keeping eyes on him. They expected that he was going to die or disappear. That's not good. So they're going to be investigating him. They had eyes on his house, like the whole time. So they're going to dig deeper. Well, that's not good for Keiichi. Okay, I'm like really invested now. That was like a crazy, crazy episode. Okay, so this has been Higurashi, our Tatarigoroshi chapter. If you are liking this series, stay tuned, and I'm sure it'll be wrapping up in another couple episodes. I thought this was going to be the final one. It was going on for a long time, but I guess we're going to have to experience the aftermath of what happens now in this investigation. But I appreciate y'all watching, and I will catch you for the next one. Peace!